Welcome, 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 and thank you all so much for tuning in to this edition of Truth and Justice with Kelli Prather. I am broadcasting live in the Busy One Entertainment Studios, and I'm so excited for this premiere edition. For one, again, it's in honor of Dismukes, who was an amazing vice president, a marketer, and just an all-around good guy. The topics that I'll discuss today are relevant or germane to the issues in the case of the unfortunate demise of Dismukes. But before I go there, for those of you who wanted an update, you all know that I have been, well, I'm an aspiring politician. I have ran for multiple offices. The first office that I ran for and I did so well with was the United States Senate. I ran in 2016, I ran for the United States Senate in the 2016 primary against former Governor Ted Strickland and former Cincinnati City Councilman P.G. Sittenfeld. Threw my name in the hat 3 months prior to the election in March of 2016. Pound the pavement, went from city to city, and they loved your girl, Kelli Prather. Yes, they loved me. I got 140,000 votes after 3 months of campaigning. So, you know, since that time, and because I've been sitting and I've been watching and trying to figure out what is going on, why are the people's interests not being represented? The political bug bit me and hit the ground running ever since. So since that time, I ran for the Cincinnati City Council. I also ran for Hamilton County Commissioner. Now, you would think that if I was able to make the ballot for the United States Senate, where I had to turn in signatures to the Secretary of State's office, I was also able to make the ballot to run for Cincinnati City Council, and then I was also able to make the ballot to run for Hamilton County Commissioner. You would think, okay, Kelli Prather is a signature petition guru. She would never have a problem making the ballot. But, unbeknownst to me, when your girl tried to run for mayor of the city of Cincinnati, not only did I turn in a set of petitions one time, I didn't turn in a set of petitions 2 times, I turned in 3 sets of petitions to run for mayor of the great city of Cincinnati. But unfortunately, I didn't make the ballot. How in the world do you make the ballot to run for the United States Senate after campaigning for 3 months, to run for Cincinnati City Council, which I probably geared up for that race maybe a year in advance, and then for Hamilton County Commissioner, and not make the ballot when you are trying to run for the mayor of the great city of Cincinnati? Well, I'll give you an answer shortly. But most recently, I ran, or attempted to run, for the United States Senate. Yes, your girl was running for the United States Senate as an independent candidate to take on the 2 political outsiders. Well, there's one political outsider on the Republican side and another political insider on the Democratic side. So, you know, me understanding that ultimately, in the words of the world-renowned Reverend Jesse Jackson, ultimately there is one political party with 2 different names: Democrats and Republicans. The Republicans look at things from I would say, a capitalization, wealth building standpoint, and the Democrats look at things from a civil rights, woe is me, poor people, pandering to poor people standpoint. Now, I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I appreciate the social service programs. I've benefited from the social service programs that are available. But, I mean, let's keep it real. They look at the same issue from 2 totally different standpoints. The rich man versus the poor man, okay? I've always said that the Republicans and the Democrats, they function like gangs. They function like gangs. When you think about it, you know, it's almost like the Crips versus the Bloods, the Reds versus the Blues. And again, going back to what Jesse Jackson said, that ultimately there's one political party with two different names, Republicans and Democrats. I'd say we need a purple perspective. Now, it's elementary. In elementary school, you've learned that if you blend colors, purple versus blue, or you mix them together, you get a purple perspective. Why don't we take those two separate political ideologies, blend them together, come up with a purple perspective to represent the highest and best interests of the people? It's time out for making it about politics. It's time out for making it about profits. It's time out for focusing solely on the party, okay? Because at the end of the day, the party, individuals who are in the party and who are lifelong, I would say, political welfare recipients, because you got politicians who've been in office for 20 plus years, and they're talking about the poor man, these individuals who make a living off of the welfare system. That's political welfare. The government, we're paying their salaries. We are paying their salaries. Okay, so this is political welfare. But going back to what I was saying, we need a purple perspective that represents the highest and best interests of the people. We, the people. Okay, so I ran for office because like I said, I'm a lifelong Democrat, and you know, after running for office, I'm like, well, I started questioning, does my political ideologies totally line up with the Democratic Party? You know, I raised myself up by my bootstraps. I was born into an impoverished family. Yes, as far as having to rely on the system for health care, I've shared in my book, Buffy's Labor of Love, Part 1, She's Resilient, Suppressed, but Saved by His Grace. Make sure you get a copy of that book. I shared in the copy of my book that my parents had to separate. I come from a two-parent family. And my father was a very proud man. But unfortunately, I was born during the time of lifetime maximums, where you had, in order to get healthcare services for your family, the family had to be separated. And so we had to get aid to dependent children based on Lyndon B. Johnson's initiative, a policy that said that, you know, you can't make more than a certain amount if you need health care insurance. And so being that I had health related issues, I had to be, I guess, the sacrificial lamb for my family. And my parents had to separate, and my mom had to do what she had to do to save my life. And, you know, and I thank God for that. But that was political. It's all political. It's political. You know, our lives, everything about our lives are political. So for those of you, now this is a public service announcement, for those of you who don't believe in voting, okay, if you don't believe in voting, you don't believe in feeding your family, you don't believe in keeping a roof over your head, you don't believe in being able to access jobs, you don't believe in healthcare, you don't believe in that. And so essentially you should just leave the country, okay? Because everything about our lives is political. And so I say that to say this. On November 8th, we have the midterm elections. The midterm elections are November 8th. And if you're not registered to vote, please register to vote before October 1st. Register to vote before October 1st, because everything about your life is on the line in this year's election. All too often, people get so hyped up about the presidential election. Well, you know, let me be the first person to tell you, what takes place in the White House is less likely to get to your house than what happens in the state house. This year, you have an opportunity to elect state senators. You have an opportunity to elect state representatives. Yes, you do have an opportunity to represent U.S. senators, but at the same time, look at these people who will make the decisions that are pertinent to your house, to your everyday life. These midterm elections, this is when you want to get involved. You want your voice to be heard. So make sure you vote. Please register to vote. Okay? You can register online. It's as easy as going to the Secretary of State's website, and they'll tell you exactly what you need to do. So register to vote. But going back to my bid for the United States Senate, and the fact that I made the ballot for multiple elections, you would think that Kelli Prather is the signature Goodwill. Kelli Prather knows what she's doing, especially since Kelli Prather goes back to the same people who signed her petitions before to get those signatures and then some. Okay? Well, that's what Kelli Prather did. But unfortunately, I didn't make the ballot for the mayor, and I didn't make the ballot for the U.S. Senator. Now, inquiring minds want to know, how did this happen? How did that happen? I'll tell you what happened. The board members for the Hamilton County Board of Elections changed. Yes, the board members, the leadership changed. And, you know, ironically, I was called before the Board of Elections. I was called, and so my producers will share a clip of that board meeting where I was called, and, you know, I went, and because I wasted so much money, so much of my personal income on flyers and like campaign material, hoodies and t-shirts. I, in the normal Kelli Prather fashion, wore my Kelli Prather for Mayor t-shirt, had my hoodie with Kelli Prather, the Kelli Prather for Mayor logo on the back. I wore that to the board meeting, and I said, well, hold up. You know, Kelli Prather is represented by an attorney. And so, although you called me into this meeting and you wanted to talk about these anomalies that I had no idea what you're talking about, I said, Kelli Prather has an attorney. Okay, Kelli Prather. Yeah, I have an attorney. So I said I requested a continuance. You know, interestingly enough, and as I mentioned, the board changed. The leadership of the board changed. So Joe Mallory, who's also the president of the Cincinnati NAACP. Joe and I serve on the executive committee of the Cincinnati NAACP together. He showed some integrity, and he recused himself from the vote. And so that left Gwen McFarland, who is the chairperson for the Hamilton County Democratic Party, Alex Triantafilou, who is the chairman for the Hamilton County Republican Party, and Chip Gerhardt, who is another board member. So that left these three individuals to decide the vote. You know, I had an opportunity to go last Friday before the vote, but, you know, unfortunately, one of my cousins met an unfortunate demise, and so we had to travel. My family and I had to travel to Michigan City, Indiana. Rest in peace, Jeff Ellis. We love you. We will miss you, but your time here on earth was well served. So we had to go to my cousin Jeff's funeral, and I asked if I could defer my appearance at this board meeting with my attorney. Well, my attorney, who just happens to be an amazing attorney who has had her fair share of issues with the Hamilton County Board of Elections, if I must say so myself. She petitioned Dave Stevenson, who is the legal advisor or the attorney for the Hamilton County Board of Elections, and said, hey, my client has an emergency. She will not be able to attend. What can we do about this? And so, in his response, now, actually, his response came from the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office. So, in his response from the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office, he pretty much said, you know, she can either submit in writing about the different anomalies that we said we witnessed on her petition, which I have no idea what they're talking about, okay, because Kelli Prather knows how to get signatures, or she can plead the Fifth. And so for those of you who understand what the Fifth is, the Fifth Amendment is the right to remain silent. That sounds like law enforcement. The right to remain silent. Now, for one, I had no idea that the Hamilton County Board of Elections could even had subpoena power. How in the world do they get that? But okay, they sent me the Ohio Revised Code, and it is cool. You know, they can do this. So I'm like, okay, well, Erica Underwood, my attorney, can you please, see if I can defer my appearance. So Erica said, well, Kelli, and I respect Erica more than anyone else. She is one of the hardest working attorneys in the state of Ohio. Now, and let me digress for a minute. If you need a great attorney, contact Erica Underwood. She's with Patricia Bass in North College Hill, 1831 West Galbraith. call Erica. She will get it done. Okay. So Erica said, well, Kelli, I'm only going to give you the best advice. And so as your legal representative, I would say, go ahead, plead the fifth. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Just don't speak out loud. So I said, okay, I plead the fifth. And so aside from pleading the fifth, in this letter indicating that I could either plead the fifth or I could submit a written response to the anomalies, which again, I don't know what they're talking about. They threatened me with criminal charges. They said that a lot of the anomalies are criminal in nature. So what this said to me as an aspiring politician, someone who just wants to do good, wants to represent the highest and best interests of the people, is they're working extremely hard to criminalize me. They're working to not only criminalize me, but to keep me from running for office again. How unconscionable is that? I'm not the only one, though. There is a lady who serves on Forest Park, Ohio City Council. Her name is Regina Collins, and she experienced the same thing. Ironically, Ozzie Davis, who is an amazing public steward, he does a lot with the youth in terms of entrepreneurial sports. I mispronounced that, and he hosts Black Political 101 just to give members of the African American community an opportunity to engage with people who want to represent us. So, I remember Ozzie never had a problem running for office before. When he ran for city council, we ran for city council together. Unfortunately, when Ozzie ran for school board, he fell short of enough signatures. Now, he could get enough signatures for Cincinnati City Council, but when he ran for school board, he could not get enough signatures. And I'm like, well, what is going on with that? The leadership of the board changed. You all know that I mentioned that Joe Mallory did the honorable thing and showed some integrity and said, hey, I have a relationship with Ms. Prather. It would be a conflict of interest if I take a vote on whether or not she should be on the ballot. Okay, he did the honorable thing. He stepped aside. Gwen McFarland. Now, I know that they said, Kelli, plead the fifth, but I would be remiss and I would not be myself if I didn't put this out there. I like Gwen. Gwen's a nice person, but I'm just wondering what happened? What happened? What made Gwen change? This is not the Gwen McFarland who served as my supervisor at Christ Hospital. This is not the Gwen McFarland who one of my favorite teachers, and I won't even put my teacher's name out there, ranted and raved about Gwen McFarland and said, oh, you're going to love working with her, this, that, and the other. What happened to Gwen McFarland? What happened? What Gwen failed to identify to the board, and in doing so, she lacked integrity. She failed to mention that she terminated my position when I served as an occupational therapist under her watch. So, would that not essentially be a conflict of interest? That's a true conflict of interest. We have a former relationship, which, in my opinion, as a professional woman, as an aspiring politician, as someone who just wants to do good for the community, I would say Gwen McFarland should have stepped aside and said, Kelli and I have a long-standing relationship, and for that reason, I don't believe that I should make a decision about whether or not she should run for office. I don't, it would just be the most respectful, or it would show integrity if I recuse myself from this vote and you all make the decision. Would they have had a quorum? Probably not. Would I have made the ballot? Probably so. Would I have won my respective election? You know I would have. That's why they didn't want me on the ballot. They knew I was going to win. They knew it. Okay? So, not only was I denied access to the ballot as a candidate for the mayor of the city of Cincinnati, but also as an independent candidate for the United States Senate. You know, I believe that this is a violation. This is a violation of my civil liberties. This is a violation of my civil rights, my civil liberties. I mean, I just think that this is a cause for alarm. And in my opinion, now, you know, I'm just a layperson. I'm not an attorney. I believe that this is cause to have the United States Department of Justice investigate the Hamilton County Board of Elections. You know, I can point to a lot of other indiscretions. I mean, especially as it relates to political outsiders who try to get into certain positions. And I can even point to the fact that when individuals win their elections, now, you all know that I'm really big on statistics, right? Okay, so I looked at the percentile, the average percentile of votes received by individuals who win their elections. Ironically, those percentiles are generally between 23 and 28% of the vote consistently. For individuals who are not winners of their respective elections, guess how many votes? Guess what the percentile is for them? 2 to 10% consistently. Ironically, the political outsiders who the members of the Board of Elections and so many other people's opinion, not just Kelli Prather's opinion, but so many other people's opinion, the percentile for these people who they want to disgrace and discourage and keep from running for office again, generally they get 2 to 4% of the vote. I would say that this is cause for the United States Department of Justice to investigate the Hamilton County Board of Elections, especially since we are on the brink of another election. You know, they talk a lot about, and shout out to the Women's League of Women Voters. They talk about voter integrity, okay? Again, you know, we're not just talking about one political party. We're talking about Democrats and Republicans. And so both parties, in my opinion, are culpable in keeping who they want out of office so that they can push their agenda. And it is unconstitutional. It's an insult on our democracy, and it needs to be addressed. Okay? I just, you know, my skin crawls when I think about the indiscretions, when I think about the corruption and the collusion between state and county government, when I think about how around election time, these stories are sensationalized. Say, for instance, you know, and there's a clip that I'm pretty sure my producer will show. Let's think about the Post shooting. The Post shooting in 2016 when I ran for the United States Senate. The Post, which was an LGBTQ nightclub in Orlando, was shot up. And sadly, for the sake of political grandstanding, innocent people lost their lives. Innocent people lost their lives. At what point will humans stop being the collateral damage of political grandstanding? In Dayton, Ohio, some years ago, a nightclub in Dayton, Ohio, there was another mass shooting. Nan Whaley, who was running for governor on the Democratic side against Governor Mike DeWine, she was mayor of Dayton, Ohio at that time, and look at her now. She's running for governor. We lost lives. At what point will there stop being people, humans, innocent bystanders murdered or gunned down for political grandstanding? Recently in downtown Cincinnati, there was a mass shooting on Main Street right outside of Mr. Pitiful's. Now, for those of you who enjoy urban entertainment or like to hang out and go to bars and a happy hour and get you a cocktail and kick back and relax after a hard week's work, you understand the importance of having that outlet. But let's be clear. The racial disparities are so obvious. If this were to have happened outside or within a mile of a Black-owned establishment, the community would have been outraged. The community council would have come down on that establishment. They would have been targeted. They would have been, stigmatized in the media. And their liquor license. So not only would this have extended beyond the city of Cincinnati, this would have extended to the state house, where their liquor license would have been challenged, and ultimately their liquor license, 9 times out of 10, their liquor license would have been revoked, and they would have lost the ability to maintain their livelihood to save that establishment. But again, we're on the cusp of an election, a mass shooting where, now I haven't been down on Main Street, and I love OTR. I love what they've done to the community. It is a political, I guess they called it a political renaissance. Now, as a social justice activist, I'm just like, this gentrification stuff has to stop, because people are losing their homes, their businesses, pushed out of communities, out to the outskirts, to places where they don't have access to the courthouse, to the Hamilton County Department of Jobs and Family Services, in a lot of instances to friends and family members, to their doctors. And so they're uprooted for their environments and pushed out to unfamiliar territory where they can't thrive. An example of such territory would be a Forest Park or a Springdale. And so, I'll get to Springdale in just a second. And so it all plays together. It all ties together. So now that citizens have been pushed from Main Street, where this mass shooting happened, and so I'm just wondering, what will be the political fallout, or what's going to happen as a result of this? In a couple of years, we'll find out. A year or so, we'll find out. But thinking about all those people who were pushed out of the inner city, pushed out of the West End, pushed out of Avondale, pushed out of Mount Auburn, to the outskirts, Springdale, Forest Park. What has happened is you go into these areas and these outskirts and you see a lot of blighted and abandoned buildings. You see a lot of malls that were run down. You saw a lot of an increase in the theft rate. Okay, and I can't confirm, I don't have any statistics to confirm that the theft rate went up, but they say that at Tri-County Mall, for instance, that I'm going to get to in just a second, there was a high amount of theft, and it was just in bad condition. It was in bad shape. And so as of April 15th of 2022, Tri-County Mall finally shut its doors. But remember, that was the primary service provider, or those were the primary stores where people who were pushed from the inner city, they were pushed out this way. Okay, so now not only are the residential properties blighted and abandoned and run down, they even closed the mall. In Forest Park, they recently closed Walmart. Now, people go to Walmart for everything. They can't get their food, they can't get their prescriptions, they can't get the oil, they can't get anything. Okay. Look at the pattern. Just look at the pattern. It's all political. So for those of you who are watching, who heard me say that if you don't vote on November 8th, everything about your life is on the line and everything about your life is going to be impacted. You can't make this stuff up. Now, you all know that I'm a researcher. I'm working on a PhD in public policy. I don't make this stuff up. I have statistics to back up everything that I'm saying. So I want to touch now on Tri-County Mall. Now, Tri-County Mall has been closed since April 15th. And the only thing that exists in Tri-County Mall, BJ's Restaurant, Starbucks Restaurant, what is it? The Longhorn Steakhouse, I believe it's Longhorn. Me Cozumel is still there. And one other store. You all heard me talk about with these development projects, some strange things happen with these multi-million-dollar contracts. A perfect example, or an example that I want to point to, is during COVID-19, during the COVID-19 pandemic, when everything was shut down, people were isolated to their house. We were quarantined. There was a curfew. We had to be in the house, or we had to show paperwork. We had to have walking paper, show paperwork why we were out after a certain hour. Ironically, although the world was shut down, the murder rate remained consistent. As a matter of fact, especially in those areas where there was development, there was an uptick in murders. One would say, what's going on? But like I said, you follow the money, you will find the corruption. Follow the money, you'll find the corruption. This brings me to Paris Dismukes of Busy One Entertainment. He was just one of the nicest people you would have ever met in your life. He was the brand ambassador for Busy One Entertainment. He was the vice president, and unfortunately, he will be laid to rest on August 25th. Guess where his unfortunate demise took place? At BJ's restaurant, in the middle of that development project. You know, my prayers go out to the Dismukes family, to the Cobb family, to the Wright family, and to everybody, to the Busy One Entertainment family, everyone who loved Paris. You know, this one hit really close to home, and, you know, I don't believe in coincidences. Where politics is involved, in the sensationalization and the grandstanding, the media is there also. Paris was in a position to bring messages to the masses. I loved working under the leadership of Paris Dismukes and Barry Cobb. Paris Dismukes was my first point of contact. And unfortunately, Paris died in the middle of a development project at BJ's restaurant. You know, without going overboard and talking about, giving too many details about what happened, I will say this because this is public record. The young man, I think he was 18 years old. He was from the Philippines. He was an immigrant. I don't know if he had his paperwork. I don't know. I don't know if he was legal, but immigration reform is political. The young man who murdered Paris was high on methamphetamines, or, you know, I have not seen a toxicology report, but it is assumed that he was on methamphetamines because he said the witches told him to murder Paris. That Paris was going to hurt him, so he had to hurt him first. The witches. Now, traditionally, or what happens with methamphetamines is people who are known to abuse meth, they have delusions of grandeur, and they also have delusions related to witches. And so, you know, people are saying that that was the drug that he was on. Interestingly enough, this individual is claiming that he is not guilty by reason of insanity. But on the flip side, that minor misdemeanor drug charge was thrown out. As a substance abuse and mental illness counselor, I know that all evidence is relevant. All evidence is relevant. And so when I look at how, without giving too much information, and this is public record, this has been in the news and all on Facebook and everywhere, when I look at how this is being handled, this screams political corruption, because apparently employees of BJ's restaurant cleaned up the murder scene. I'm a healthcare professional. You know, I work with blood, and I know that when you have a spill, a chemical spill, or when there is a substantial amount of blood, you call HAZCON, or you call someone to handle that hazardous material. So, you know, first I want to give a shout out to the primary administration of BJ's Restaurant. They did pay, from what I understand, they helped pay for the funeral expenses of Paris. But I mean, there's just so much that you have to look at with this. The fact that the county, the judge who gave this gentleman a bond, dismissed the minor misdemeanor drug charge. You know, I'm not an attorney, but I would think that you want to do a toxicology report, especially since this individual is claiming to be not guilty by reason of insanity, to determine whether or not it was the drugs or a mental illness. You know, I know that they're going to do a psychological evaluation, but still, you should have determined whether it was the drugs or a true mental illness. All evidence is relevant. I want to put evidence and relevance together. So, for some reason, but all evidence is relevant. You know, there's just a lot of pieces. There's a lot of moving pieces. A lot of moving pieces that we need to take a close look at. This is deep. This is deep. And there's more to the story. You know, I thank God that the Cobb family, the Wright family, the Dismukes family, they're praying people. And it warmed my heart to hear Paris' sister say that in talking to the physician who pronounced, I guess he was alongside the coroner who pronounced Paris deceased, that he told the family that before Paris took his last breath, he prayed. Paris was a praying man. He was a praying man. And I thank God that the Cobb, Wright, and Dismukes family understand that vengeance belongs to the Lord. It is not our responsibility to take up any torch and go after anyone. Vengeance is the Lord. And so it warmed my heart to stand with the family members after the arraignment of this individual who is now on trial for murder, and to pray outside of the Hamilton County Justice Center for justice. And so the title of my podcast, and I don't believe in coincidences, the title of my podcast is Truth and Justice, because at the end of the day, we are praying for the truth to come out and for justice for Paris. For truth to come out and for justice for Paris. You know, like I said, I'm a researcher. I brought a ton of information on the boundless immigration reform and talking about, you know, I was ready to talk about what the Democrats are doing to address immigration reform and what the Republicans are saying about it. But what I will say, and I won't get into all of that right now, but what I will say is there needs to be a balance. Yes, we need to open our borders, or we need to allow immigrants in to achieve the American dream. But what about the American people who are struggling to achieve the American dream? What about taking care of home first? Yes, you know, you can't stereotype or make generalizations about all immigrants, just like you can't stereotype or make generalizations about all Americans. And you don't want to assume that everyone who comes over here is violent and looking to still kill and destroy American citizens. But what about citizens like Paris Dismukes, who fell prey to a delusional, at least that's what he's saying, immigrant? Come on now, people, we need a balance. I just, you know, and I go back to what I initially said. We have the Republican Party, which is red. We have the Democratic Party, which is blue. How about merging those political ideologies and coming up with a purple perspective that is in the highest and best interest of the people? On the next episode of Truth and Justice with Kelli Prather, I'm going to talk about Rob Portman, who is retiring from his position as a U.S. Senator. He has made mention on multiple occasions that there's a terrifying rise of counterfeit drugs, and there needs to be national action to address the fact that fentanyl deaths are increasing, counterfeit drugs, Percocets are being put out on the streets. I'm also hearing that people are putting napkins laced with fentanyl and other deadly drugs on car windows. I'll talk about that on the next episode of Truth and Justice with Kelli Prather. I'm also going to talk about substance abuse, mental illness, and if you have a loved one who's struggling with addiction, what you can do to help them. I'm going to talk about, again, the balanced immigration rules and what we can do to ensure that our borders are safe. You know, they want to keep saying that the uptake in counterfeit drugs are coming from the southern border. And so they, meaning the Republicans, and saying that we need to work to erect this wall. Let me just say this. You all know that Kelli Prather is a jack of all trades. I've worked practically in every industry in this country, even the airline. So my thing is, I understand that you have immigrants coming from Mexico, but what good is it going to do to erect a wall when I worked for the airlines and it's so laxed. You know, we have transitioned from major airlines like Delta, American, American Airlines, Delta Airlines, Southwest Airlines. We've transitioned from them to having federal contracted airlines with lax laws, lax rules. When I worked for, what was it? I want to say, I don't even know which airline it was. It was a bootleg airline, okay, at the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky airport. I could have taken anything or brought anything. I could have taken anything to a plane or brought anything from a plane. And so that was just not me. It was me or any of my coworkers. Not only did I work in the airline on the domestic side, but the international side, you know, in customs. So I said that to say this. They're talking about erecting a wall to prevent drugs from coming from the southern border and creating harsher laws for drug dealers. For one, I come from a community of people who, yes, I mean, they sold drugs, did things they didn't have any business doing, but I never saw any of them driving or flying a plane. They weren't bringing these drugs over here. And then you have these federal contracted airlines where they have these lax security rules. And I'm telling you, it's all political grandstanding. But we'll get into that more on the next episode of Truth and Justice with Kelli Prather. I know this was a whole lot to digest, but again, I pride myself on keeping you inspired, encouraged, engaged, and empowered to walk empowered towards your purpose and keeping you in the know. So thank you so much for tuning into this edition of Truth and Justice with Kelli Prather right here at the Busy One Entertainment Studio. Shout out to my producer, 4 Shots Films. You're going to love this. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I leave you with grace, faith, and peace. God bless you. Have a wonderful day, and goodbye.
Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, his eye is on the And I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. I love you, Uncle Vader.